If we had to throw back to every single dress code violation we ever talked about, it would be this North Texas school that had a viral video on it that showed backlash, and a one person who would not speak at graduation because of her dress. Let's start off first with the viral video that happened in North Texas. Now, this happened 6 years ago. This happened 5 years, almost 6 years ago. And it prompted a lot of controversy and a principal trying to apologize. You're about to see that video, and you may ask yourself, what was the school thinking? Here's Marianne Martinez.
Okay, ladies, follow me. The girls are taken to a dress code violators room filled with only other girls.
Repeat after me. I will not wear athletic shorts.
The first thing that really hit me was the song. I've seen boys who wear tank tops. I've seen boys whose pants are sagging and showing their underwear band, and that's also not in dress code, but that wasn't addressed even once.
In a letter to parents, Principal Will Skelton explained that a fashion show that demonstrates what to wear and what not to wear didn't happen. Quote, we believed a video would be a good way to replace the fashion show, but this video absolutely missed the mark. In Catherine Mooring's eyes, the video shows a double standard in the student dress code and how society treats men and women.
We should be more educated on women's rights. We should be more educated on sexualization and rape culture, because that's what all of this really boils down to, is that somewhere a group of people agreed that this was okay to show, and there wasn't one person who said, you know, maybe we shouldn't do this.
The principal also told parents, I'm a firm believer that when you make a mistake, you own it, you apologize, and you make it right. Now, we're also told tonight that the principal has met with some of the young women at the school who were offended by the video. The students say they are very happy that that the principal has been open to listening to them, and they feel he has taken ownership for what has happened. Reporting live from Flower Mound, Marianne Martinez, CBS 11 News.
And you know, everybody takes accountability. Everybody, I mean, there's like an old saying. Yes, let me tell you. When you make a mistake, you admit to it, and then you make up for the fact that you made that mistake, and then bada boom, you apologize for it, and then you move on from it. You move on from your mistakes. I'm glad that was done. Now imagine being able to speak at your speech, but then you get dress coded for it. Here's Kitty Jones.
On top of all of her schoolwork and studying, extracurriculars are extremely important to 17-year-old Cam Boland.
I'm currently junior class president of Fort Myers High School. I'm captain of the girls basketball team.
She also recently ran for county historian for the National Honor Society. It's an elected position she had to give a speech for at Ida Baker High School in front of her peers and advisors. After the votes were tallied, Cam found out she'd won.
I was told I won, and 20 minutes later they said I could not be in my position because I had my shoulders exposed.
This is the dress Cam and another student who was also disqualified were wearing. Although this was an extracurricular event, it was held during the school day, so NHS advisors said the two violated the district's dress code.
I was wearing a dress because I never met previously any of the other students from other schools. I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted to look nice for a speech.
After she was disqualified, Cam apologized and asked to give the speech again with her jacket on. But she was told no, something that baffles her mom.
Honestly, I thought it was a joke at the beginning. I am a huge supporter of my community and my school. But when my school district fails, not just my student, but all students on their basic rights, I have a problem with it.
I took their concerns to the Lee County School District, and in a statement, a spokeswoman says, in part, quote, the dress code is an implied expectation for events during the school day, as was indicated by the more than 36 students that were in dress code on this day. I then asked what consequences students normally get, and I'm told they usually get a warning, but club sponsors, coaches, and other activities where membership is considered a privilege often articulate a higher set of standards for their students. Caroline Boland says her daughter's hard work and dedication shouldn't go unrewarded because of her wardrobe.
It defies everything I have taught, my husband and I have taught our children. It defies everything they have taught in school in terms of our process, our democracy, what a vote means, the privilege to vote.
Now, Cam's mom tells me she's been constantly reaching out to school administrators and board members, but isn't getting much of a response. She says if they don't get this issue settled soon, she plans to voice her concerns at next week's school board meeting. Reporting in Lee County, Katie Jones, Fox 4 in your corner.
All right, thank you, Katie. Now we want to hear from you. Do you?
She should have been stripped from her title, basically because of her dress code violation. She should have been given a second chance. You don't just wear a jacket over you could have sit. I got nothing else to say. This is getting common sense written all over it. You should have let her wear that dress. Wear something nice. And then just go to her back and say, no, you ain't gonna do it. We're gonna give him that reward. Too bad. Cry like a freaking duckling. That's how it was. You're crying like a duckling. And maybe you wouldn't be crying like a duckling if you went to your chiropractor. Coming up next, on Throwback Thursday, you won't forget chiropractors. But are they ripping off your children? Or are they just killing your kids? Are they scamming you out of your money? John Stiles with a very important investigation. Stay with us. Tonight's main Throwback Thursday focus is going to be on something that us parents trust. Who do you turn to for your child to feel better? What if that person were to be not a pediatrician, but a chiropractor? We associate them with all adults fixing backs and all. And as we focus in on last season, those chiropractors, no one's basically handling with care. Like handling with taxes and all. What you're about to see is some patients on hidden camera as the children giving some, I don't know what you call it, some outrageous diagnosis and some horrific examples of chiropractors who work on the child and then weeks, days, months later become paralyzed. Here's John Stiles.
That okay? Did we do good? Okay, Greg, get ready.
Dr. Larry Webster of Atlanta is the image of the kindly family doctor. His waiting room is filled with kids and parents who firmly believe Dr. Webster is their road to good health.
Well, that means that probably they seek me out first for a problem.
But Webster is not a family doctor in the usual sense. He's not a pediatrician or even an MD. He's a chiropractor, one of many who now say, we can do more than just treat backs. Chiropractic can help your whole body, and your children's bodies too. Webster's treatment, you're seeing it here, focuses on making an adjustment in the child's spine. He just pushes on the bones. This, he says, gets rid of something called vertebral subluxations, bones out of alignment in the spine that chiropractors claim press on nerves. Getting rid of these subluxations, he says, restores the child's nerve supply and allows messages to flow freely from the brain. This is supposed to allow the body to heal itself.
Did you make an adjustment?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
So that little thing, that was it?
That was it.
The appointment costs about $25 and lasts just minutes. But Dr. Webster's customers are very satisfied. He and other chiropractors we watched have wonderful bedside manner. Dr. Webster plays with the kids and takes lots of time to explain things. Above all, his treatments are unthreatening. No shots, no antibiotics, no vaccinations, ever. It's all natural healing, say many chiropractors, and by treating vertebral subluxations, this natural healing can prevent ear infections, asthma, bedwetting, some say even cancer.
I think it's amazing myself.
This mother says Webster helped her autistic child.
He wouldn't sit still, period. I mean, he would tear the things off the wall. And now, he'll sit in class. In class, teachers say, well, he sits in class
Probably my most dramatic one has been a kid from Sao Paulo, Brazil.
That child, he says, was deaf when he first saw him.
We adjusted him on Saturday, checked him again Saturday afternoon, adjusted him again. Sunday morning, they told me the child was doing this. The child was having sounds penetrating for the first time and did not know what they were. And now the child's hearing only.
Can I talk to these families?
Well, if you got Sao Paulo, Brazil, I don't know.
We can call Brazil.
Sure, okay. And that's no problem.
But later, when we asked him for the number, he said he couldn't find it. All this makes me more skeptical, but his patients believe
He does everything.
For many, Webster's the only doctor they see.
Do you go to a pediatrician too?
I don't go to a pediatrician.
He does everything.
He does everything.
But your son then gets no vaccinations?
Not at all.
No antibiotics? Ever?
Not needed.
I said, chiropractor for an ear infection?
This mother was skeptical at first.
I really was still kind of leery when he did the little thing that he does to his ears, and he hasn't had an ear infection since.
It's all nonsense and scare tactics.
Dr. Murray Katz of Quebec is director of one of North America's biggest pediatric medical centers.
If this is such nonsense, why do patients get better?
Patients don't get better. People believe they're getting better. We know that ear infections can go away in 2 days. We know an asthma attack can stop acutely. We know that bedwetting, eventually people outgrow it.
Katz is just one of many medical doctors skeptical of chiropractic. But Katz is unusual in that he's taken the time to really study it. He's visited chiropractic colleges, sat in on courses. He even joined the Chiropractic Pediatric Association, which is headed by Dr. Webster. Katz and other MDs' conclusion, yes, spinal manipulation, like the treatment you're seeing here, can be useful in relieving some lower back pain. And there are studies in medical journals to support this. But as for relieving other symptoms and treating children, Katz and others say it's nonsense.
There are hundreds of millions of dollars being spent to treat 15 or 20 million children a year for subluxations, which none of them have.
Can you give me a smile, John? Yeah, that's great.
Dr. Webster's been called the grandfather of chiropractic pediatrics. But today it's a hot business, and lots of chiropractors are doing what Webster does. Today there are companies that teach chiropractors how to build their practice. Make $1 million in 24 months. I guess then you can buy this boat. Another tells you how to treat patients for a lifetime. $100 buys you a tape that'll convince parents to bring their kids in. One trick is to offer free steak dinners to people who listen to your pitch. And the children get coloring books showing the joys of adjustment. Even the dog wants one. Many pediatric chiropractors were inspired by the baby adjusters, Palmer and Jennifer Pete. They run a business teaching others how to open a practice, how to promote it with things like free t-shirts. And they teach courses for chiropractors, talking about things like ear infections, colds, asthma. And they know their techniques work. They've helped thousands of children.
They come in with a fever, we adjust them, the child goes to bed, and they get up the next morning, and it's as if there was never anything wrong with them. We've had case after case.
The Pete's ideas are quoted in chiropractic manuals.
Chiropractic works and medical procedures usually fail.
In some cases that's true, and I don't think that you'll get people to argue with that too much.
Usually fail?
From the histories of literally thousands of children that we've taken when we've checked them in our office, many of them have come to us as medical failures.
And you can help these children more than a conventional doctor could?
If they have a vertebral subluxation, I'm the only kind of doctor that can help them.
And how many people have subluxations?
About 95% of children have vertebral subluxations.
They say 95% of children have them. They don't?
They don't. They have an ulterior motive for saying it. It's a growth industry. In order to find something to treat, they must find everybody's little bones out of place starting right after birth.
You doctors are just protecting your turf so you can make more money.
It's not a fight between doctors and chiropractors. It's a fight between science and superstition. It's a fight between science and a belief system.
The pediatric chiropractors say they have science behind them, the science of subluxations. This is the crux of the dispute. Many medical doctors say what the chiropractors call subluxations don't even exist, that everyone has tiny variations in their spines, and these have no effect on our health. The doctors also say that if you show chiropractors the same x-rays, they can't even agree on where the subluxations are. Chiropractors like the Pete say research shows they can't pick out the same subluxations. You can pick up subluxations on these x-rays.
Absolutely.
And
Really?
it's 0.97%. That's very high.
Well, let me ask you to do one then. I'll do a few.
I can't, I don't have a view box.
Yeah,
Sorry, we're not set up yet.
Also, we don't have the time because we have to.
Well, if we leave them with you, or?
Well, it would depend on what kind of x-rays we're looking
And the
at.
quality of the
The
x-ray.
quality of the x-ray and... This isn't a very good x-ray. Who took these? And that one, you can't analyze that.
If you can't read these x-rays, can we take some of your x-rays and take them to other chiropractors and see if they see the same thing?
Yes.
But when we later tried to do that experiment, the Petes wouldn't give us the x-rays. They said we were running a circus.
Certainly medically checks out just fine. Physically he's okay.
We thought we'd learn more about this hot new business by running a real-life test. Blake has recurring ear infections. His pediatrician told his mother, Lori, that the ear infections can be treated with antibiotics, and eventually Blake will outgrow them.
Yeah.
At our request, Lori then took Blake to 9 chiropractors. A 2020 cameraman accompanied her, saying he was a friend. The friend carried a hidden camera. If pediatric chiropractic is a science, you'd think that the chiropractors would agree on what's wrong with Blake. Or perhaps they'd agree with the pediatrician and say Blake is healthy and needs no treatment. Did they? No. Every chiropractor found a problem, and for the most part, not the same problem. The first one says,
Blake has misalignment between the second and the third bones in his neck.
This chiropractor found a different misalignment.
And it's on the right side of his neck between the first and second bone.
This doctor concluded that Blake's main problem is in his glands.
At least in terms of the reflexes that I'm testing, there is a weakness in the renal glands.
This chiropractor knows Blake has a subluxation because one of his legs is shorter than the other.
They're not even close to double. No, see, this is all without it.
And so on. Although the chiropractors found different problems, they agreed on one thing. They could help. And by the way, Blake's crying not because the chiropractors hurt him. Blake just doesn't like going to the doctor. Now, some of the techniques the chiropractors used were quite strange, such as second-hand examinations. This chiropractor says he'll diagnose Blake by pulling on Lori's arm while Lori touches Blake.
Just touch on the shoulder. As I push down your arm, and there's a problem, I'm going to go weak. And that's going to give me information about what has to be done.
This chiropractor had Blake lie on top of Lori, and then he pulls Lori's legs.
Now what we're doing right now is I'm testing her muscles for him, okay? And there's a combination of energy here. So let me show you. Hold this up again. All right, now this leg doesn't work so good, and this leg doesn't work so good, right? Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, now that means that there is a jamming of his occiput. That's the top bone in the head. What? The occiput, which is the backbone of the skull. All right? Now
By pushing down on her leg, you thought?
that's what it says.
Yeah.
Then he touches Blake's back, and presto, he says Blake is already better.
I just lifted the occiput, the backbone of the skull, with my thumbs, like this, and like that on the other side. And then we went back and tested the muscles, and they were strong. So that's something.
And that's Lori's muscles.
Well, yeah, but it's right now she's becoming him.
Blake needs treatment, he says. His bones don't work.
So they gotta be fixed. But before we fix that, we have to line up certain other things. His immune system don't work.
And the doctor was worried about learning disabilities.
Learning disability?
Yes, with somebody in the family.
Someone in here.
In your family.
How do you figure that?
Because I know.
You know that just from what?
This is what I do. And your eyes don't team too well with me, so me, the both of you, I think, is got a problem.
Of course, the cameraman wasn't even related to Blake. Why all the varying diagnoses? When we confronted the chiropractors, they told us the body is always changing. And some said these were just initial evaluations and more tests would be needed. In any case, all 9 chiropractors said they could help, though the treatment would be expensive because it could last anywhere from several weeks to a lifetime.
Now, you're seeing the growing...
Last anywhere from several weeks to a lifetime.
Several weeks to a lifetime. That's how long it would last. When we come back, part 2 of John Styles' investigation with another experiment and one that we're in and an example that led to death and paralyzation. Stay with us. We're not our investigation. We're not saying anything bad about chiropractors. They are the best people in the world treating people's backs. But for children from years ago, false diagnoses can often lead to murder, can lead to death and mistreatment if properly not used by medications. But chiropractors don't need pain meds or antibiotics. But all they really need is basically some training. And as you're about to see from the conclusion of John Styles' investigation, the experiment will continue, even if the child is paralyzed. Once again, here's John Stossel.
Recently, 2 children were brought to this hospital at the University of Iowa with mastoiditis, an ear infection so bad it had eaten into their skulls. Cases this severe are seldom seen since the age of antibiotics, but the chiropractors that had treated the children didn't think antibiotics were necessary. At this hospital in Peoria, doctors were stunned to see a case of kwashiorkor, a kind of malnutrition rarely seen in developed countries. Matthew Goodwin had been treated by chiropractor James Hogue. Hogue says he was treating the child for a skin rash. Apparently he didn't know that the rash was the result of malnutrition. Hogue adjusted him and prescribed herbal therapies like Silmax leaf from the health food store. But Matthew's problem was that he just wasn't getting enough food. Hogue didn't notice that.
I saw no indication that he, for instance, was not being fed.
Hogue claims he referred Matthew to a pediatrician, but Matthew wasn't seeing a pediatrician. Officials say he was only being treated by Hogue. When Matthew arrived at St. Francis Medical Center, doctors here tried to save him, but it was too late. He died of malnutrition. Lawyers for Matthew's grandmother asked physician Warren Bishop to investigate the chiropractor's care.
This is obvious. This sort of thing should be obvious to anybody. I think if you were in the grocery store, for example, in line at the cash register behind a mother carrying a child who looked like this, you would have been shocked, appalled, and worried. Treating it with Silmax leaf, whatever that is, it just defies belief.
A grand jury indicted the boy's caretaker, his grandmother, for neglect because she didn't provide proper medical attention. She's been sentenced to 4 years in jail for involuntary manslaughter. The grand jury wanted Hogue investigated further, but the DA responsible decided not to prosecute. Hogue continues to offer chiropractic care to children.
I didn't see any indication he was starving to death. The last time he was in, he looked thin.
One more case. When Keith Farrow was a baby, he held his head at a tilt. His mother's chiropractor said, "I can help."
He just kept talking to us and finally talked us into it. You know, saying that he could fix that.
And he turned his head to the right, to the left, and back, and snapped. I mean, he popped, his neck popped, you know, and Keith started crying. And he said, well, he'll calm down a little bit. It won't hurt very long.
The next day, he says, Keith went limp, so they took him back to the chiropractor.
He turned his head to right, left, and snapped. I said, well, look how limp he is. He said, he just looks like he's got a bad flu bug. He said, he'll be okay in a couple days.
Keith started running a fever. Then they took him to an emergency room. Eventually, a St. Louis hospital found Keith had a tumor that ran the length of his spinal cord. The doctors believe the chiropractor's adjustment aggravated the tumor, which then cut off the blood supply to Keith's spine. Today, Keith is paralyzed from the waist down. The chiropractor, James Kessinger of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, says Keith's problem stemmed from a drug he was given at the hospital.
So it's not because you adjusted his spine?
No, absolutely.
The doctor said the tumor ruptured, and I would think you were...
He said it ruptured, but he had no proof of that.
In fact, Kessinger says if the Farrows had just brought Keith in earlier, proper adjustments might have taken pressure off Keith's brainstem, and the tumor might never have grown.
You don't feel you did anything wrong with Keith?
Oh, absolutely not.
He should have come to you sooner?
Absolutely.
The Farrows don't know what to believe. They're not convinced that the chiropractor caused Keith's problems. They even took Keith back to Dr. Kessinger in hopes more adjustments would relieve Keith's paralysis. They didn't. We thought we'd try another test, this time with a child who does have an ongoing problem. 5-year-old Cody Finello of La Crosse, Wisconsin, has chronic ear infections. Infections so severe, they're starting to give him hearing loss. Cody's medical doctors want to insert tubes in his ears to help the infection drain. But Cody's mother was nervous about surgery.
Then I got talking to my normal chiropractor, and he said he could do something better. And if I can find some other way to fix his ear problem, I'll do it.
ABC paid to have Cody examined by 8 chiropractors. Again, all 8 found a problem. But Cody's mom says it usually wasn't the same problem. This chiropractor said Cody has a pinched nerve in his neck. At this office, the chiropractor said Cody's left leg was shorter than his right. Here, the chiropractor said his right leg was shorter than his left. Chiropractic critic Dr. Katz says none of the diagnoses make sense.
Why couldn't an ear infection be caused by a pinched nerve?
If the nerve was being pinched, all the parts which that nerve supplies would then be affected. The child would have facial paralysis, the child might have swallowing problems, the child would have many, many other problems.
Anatomically impossible.
Anatomically impossible.
This chiropractor said the problem was nutritional. Cody was deficient in zinc. This doctor said food sensitivities are the problem.
These are the things that he was sensitive to. Stay away from corn, cow's milk, and white flour.
Okay.
He never even examined Cody's ears. When we asked these chiropractors why all the different diagnoses, some said leg lengths change. Some said they weren't varying diagnoses, just different techniques.
Stay away from corn, cow's milk, and white flour.
When we confronted this chiropractor, he said although he had talked about food, his main diagnosis was a subluxation in the top vertebrae. Chiropractor James Bowman said Cody didn't even have an ear problem. Instead, he said he has a disturbance in his nervous system.
The cause of that seems to be scoliosis, which
Scoliosis is a frightening diagnosis. It can be grossly deforming.
This is very persuasive. His spine is curved. If I were his mother, I'd worry.
Scoliosis is not any little curve in the spine, and it's not a condition which we see in that age group. It's almost unheard of. We've never seen a case. I think I've seen one case in 20 years.
His doctor says your diagnosis is ridiculous.
Well, you know, if he's not familiar with chiropractic, it would sound absurd, certainly.
And the radiologist, too, says this is totally normal.
I disagree.
Of course, if you listen to what the Petes say, most children don't have normal spines. They have subluxations.
Subluxations, if left undetected and uncorrected, are life-threatening?
They certainly are.
They certainly are.
Someone might just drop dead if they're not treated.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Now is the time to tell your patients that subluxations are slowly killing their children.
That's true.
That's true.
You're scaring people for money.
Oh, no. Sometimes we don't even charge patients.
But you're running a business telling people to do more with kids. You're getting paid by other chiropractors for help in starting a business.
Is it scary for the Cancer Foundation to go out and warn women about having mammograms? That's not a scare tactic. That's an educational tactic. What parent wouldn't want their child to be able to have that kind of health care?
A parent who thought you were quacks.
Well, doctors of chiropractic attend chiropractic college for as long as medical doctors go to school.
Yet even some chiropractors are critical. The biggest chiropractic association says there's no evidence that subluxations are life-threatening and that comments like that are irresponsible. On the other hand, the association does claim they've had lots of success treating kids, and they say children with ear infections and other conditions should be evaluated by chiropractors. The association and other chiropractors we talked to said children should also be seen by a pediatrician. Some chiropractors were still more critical.
They are making all the chiropractic physicians, even the scientifically oriented ones that are trying to do a good job, look like absolute quacks.
Chuck Duvall heads the National Association for Chiropractic Medicine, which believes chiropractors should stick to trying to relieve back pain in adults.
Is there a lot of money in this?
Oh, there is so much money being ripped off. They want the patient to start from the day they're born on, forever.
I'd say maybe the average patient here is 50, 60 times, but over a period of time. And again,
Is that
it's
covered by
individual.
insurance?
Yes, yes.
You might be surprised to learn who's paying for all this. You are.
So the government pays for these treatments?
Oh, absolutely. It has for years. Medicaid and Medicare in most states cover for chiropractic, and it's not limited to the treatment of back pain.
There's
But they
no
say
basis.
they'll make the body work right so it can heal itself and prevent itself from getting sick.
That's a wonderful idea, but it's not ever been proven.
Might be true.
Might be true, or we might go downstairs and have lunch with Elvis.
So are you saying that they're making it up just to make money?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I don't agree with that. From the people I met, I think they genuinely believe that they're doing the right thing.
And they're exercised about it because the mail and faxes are coming in by
Yeah,
the
this is
ton,
phenomenal.
even before it's on the air. John, I have to ask you, this business of a medium, this second-hand therapy, like pulling the mother's leg instead of the child's, is that conventional treatment in chiropractic, or is that something oddball?
No, that's something that the main chiropractic association said was absolute nonsense. Very few believe in that, but it's being taught at seminars and practiced around the country.
Do you think there ought to be laws curtailing that kind of activity?
Well, I mean, I think in a free country, people should have the right to seek out alternative medicine. I think that should, it might work. Anything is possible. I'm upset that we pay for it. The government and in our insurance, we pay for their experimental treatment.
That was a surprise to me when you first came up with that. It's a fascinating piece. Thank you, John. Thanks.
What the hell is it? I mean, look at all that letter. Look at that mail right there. It's as thick as these. I mean, all this. You can even, like, this thick from letters. That thick. When we come back, a Throwback Thursday Classic all about competition in schools. Oh, it's all about competition. We'll be right back. Here's something we focused on. We focused on Super in America. But there was one comment talking about competition. Just recently I had a conversation with a good friend of mine who works at an ice cream bar here in the Bluff. And she's worried about a new place here in the Bluff that's going to be selling all kinds of shakes. And she's upset about it. And this is what I told her. This is what I told her when I quoted from John Stossel. Competition is good. Competition, why are you watching me? You have choices. I mean, for schools, if you had only one channel and the government told you what you had to watch, it's generally how it works for schools. Competition makes everything better. Competition is why we have Subway, McDonald's, Whataburger, Burger King, Taco Bell, CBS, ABC, NBC, CNBC, MSNBC. We have a choice of what channel you want to watch, what school you want to go to. Competition makes everything better. Competition is why we have all these things. And my friend is worried all about what's going on. Tomorrow on the broadcast, we are going to talk about competition and what it could mean for all businesses, especially for that new business. Here's a sneak peek for banning the competition.
What if before I could get my TV show, I had to first get permission from the competition? If Dan Rather or Diane Sawyer said no, I wouldn't be here. That makes sense.
R.J. Bruner of Kentucky assumed he could start a moving company without having to get his competitors' permission.
We'll schedule this one and this one first.
So he started one.
We put an ad on Craigslist, pickup truck, and an enclosed cargo trailer, and we were very, very busy all summer long.
More people wanted your services. Now, in just a couple of years, you got 30 employees, 6 trucks.
Over 30 now. Clean-cut young guys. That really sells, in the moving industry.
This customer's pleased.
It's been great. The guys showed up exactly on time. They've been loading. They've been working hard.
But RJ soon learned that pleasing customers isn't enough. He got a threatening letter from state regulators.
In order to continue to operate, we need a household goods permit. Basically, it's a certificate of necessity saying that there is room in the market for us to operate.
Certificate of necessity, meaning
a necessity within the moving market in Kentucky for another mover.
What? A business has to prove it's needed to get a license?
You essentially have to get permission from your own competition first.
Tim Sandifer's law firm took Bruner's case for free.
When Starbucks began, it would have had to have gotten permission from all the other coffee shops?
That's right. But if you had to prove then that America needed a new national chain of coffee shops, you couldn't have proven that.
No, we don't need that.
And yet it turns out America did need a new chain of coffee shops. We know that because they're so successful.
Competition sorts this stuff out better.
That's right. The consumer is in the driver's seat.
But not when the competition has veto power.
We're worried about consumer protections. Healthy companies in Kentucky.
Ryan Flota is president of the Kentucky Movers Association. He has his own moving business. Kentucky, like half the states, allows existing companies to protest new competition. And over the past 5 years, 19 companies were prevented from entering the moving business because competitors said the existing transportation service is adequate. Competition would diminish their revenue.
Affordable Moving, Vincent Fisher, Hall Moving, all these other moving companies say no, we don't want to allow that. Well, what gives them the right?
We're not against new companies coming into Kentucky.
Yes, you are. You don't want a moving company stealing your business.
We don't want the scenario of a licensed company going bankrupt.
But companies go bankrupt all the time.
It's the end of the line for Circuit City. Borders bookstore went belly up.
It's part of the creative destruction that makes competition work.
Let's say a town population of 20,000 people. Would it be beneficial to the consumers to have 15 moving companies in that area?
Maybe. How do you know?
You'd have companies that are not in a position to provide a good service to the general public.
The bureaucracy can't decide whether there's a public need for a new moving company. Not even the moving companies know that. They have to try it and find out by an experiment. And these laws prohibit that kind of experiment.
Wouldn't Home Depot like to say, no, new hardware store in the neighborhood, you can't open? Wouldn't GM have liked to say that to Toyota and Honda?
I'm sure. I'm not the one that set the law. I'm just abiding by the law.
Also, he says, the older moving companies want to protect consumers from shady operators.
Say I'm coming to pick up your furniture. Okay, I tell you it's $80 an hour. Well, then when I get to your new house, I say, well, you know, I'm going to charge you $155 an hour.
Now we have this thing called the internet where people can find out if a company has a bad reputation.
Consumers go for the cheapest price, John.
Risa DeBeer checked the web before she hired RJ.
If somebody rated a company poorly, said they didn't take care of their items, that would certainly, ring some alarm bells for me.
Had you had complaints from people you moved?
No complaints. In fact, we are the top-ranked moving company in the state, according to Angie's List.
Startups like RJ's company create much of the job growth in America.
Entrepreneurs are the wealth creators of our society. They're the engine of innovation and progress and job creation and wealth creation.
I assume if I want to start a business, a moving company would be a good way to enter. Simple, just need a truck, some strength. Go compete.
It should be. You buy a truck, you paint the word mover on the side of it, and you're in business. And if customers like your products and services, then they'll buy from you. And if they don't, then they won't.
No, the regulators aren't just mean. For safety in an orderly marketplace, shouldn't there be some rules?
Orderly marketplaces are precisely what we don't want. What we want is a free marketplace. If we have an orderly marketplace, who's doing the ordering? It should be consumers who do the ordering. And the law stops them from doing that. Not to protect the public, but to protect established businesses against having to compete fairly. That violates liberty. These laws are outrageous and they all ought to go.
And they would all ought to go. We're gonna talk about more about competition tomorrow when we do this live from outside from the ice cream bar. Because this conversation me and a friend of mine had is the subject of tomorrow's show. We're back in a few weeks with our next Throwback Thursday, and we'll see you again for Gimme Break Friday from the ice cream bar. For all of us here at YouTube, good night.